Hi, and welcome to College Planning Untangled, where we help families simplify the college planning process. I'm Kristin Clark. I'm here with College Planning Untangled, where I help students figure out a career path and a college major or another education path that gets them to that goal. And I'm here with Bobby Hood, our SAT ACT guru with Bobby Hood Online Tutoring.
Well, welcome. It's great to be here. I'm excited about continuing our series we're doing right now, which is hard things are not that hard, right?
So we're
Uh,
continuing our series
yeah,
on hard things are not that hard. And Bobby today is going to talk about the ACT English part of the test.
absolutely. So the English test is the first section on each ACT, and it's seems like it's where they underline a bunch of things in the passage, and then you pick the best answer. And it's mostly tests grammar things like punctuation and verb usage and punctuation and things, which I mean, I think that's really only something that's kind of talked about in elementary school, right? Like they don't teach that stuff in high school. And so suddenly in this test, right, when you sit down, they're testing things that you haven't thought about since childhood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it
It,
does. And that's,
it's
and we know this, right, as adults, because we're like, okay, there's lots of stuff that we haven't thought about for a long time. But for the kids, you kind of think you get it, right? But
right.
then they come up with these certain rules that you're like, ah,
Well, see, yeah, and this is the thing is like there are lots and lots of rules about grammar that you learn like in your life in elementary school. And so you might know lots and lots of grammar rules, but people argue about grammar rules. And so you might come in there trying to think about 10 or 15 different grammar rules that you think you know, right? And they're only testing a very limited number of rules. And so the trick is the English section is the easiest section to get just a huge, huge increase on. And the reason why is because they only test 13 rules. And so the first thing I do with students is I give them a list of 13 rules to be aware of. And then all you have to do is every question on the test, figure out which of those 13 rules apply.
okay.
And so the first thing so what I want to do is I'm just going to pull up some questions and show you the rules and show you how straightforward this can be. So
I'm a little bit nervous. Okay.
yeah, no, this is good. Yeah, this is going to be a little interesting. Okay, so what do I do here? I say share screen. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so here's a rule. The first rule is, can you see that okay?
I can.
Okay, so the first rule, or one of the rules, this is actually the second rule that I present, is whenever you see commas or parentheses or dashes in answers, there's only one rule on the ACT, which is if there's something extra jammed in the middle of a sentence, then you put commas or parentheses or dashes around it. So you see like those example sentences there,
Yeah.
I just put parentheses around. There's something stuck in the middle of the sentence. We could just cross it out and the sentence would still be okay, right? And so the answer could be parentheses or dashes or commas. Those are all the same thing. That's
Sure.
it. And all the other rules about commas, they don't test them. And that's the thing is all you got to look for is there something extra? Like, I guess if you have an intro phrase on a sentence, you could put one comma after it. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
That makes sense. And I'll tell
Yeah.
you, Bobby, I write a lot for my work,
Hmm.
just coming up with content. And I actually think with Grammarly, I use Grammarly. I
Hmm.
actually think I'm kind of learning some of this again where it
Sure.
catches me, but it sticks. So,
Absolutely. Yeah. And so then look at this question that's on the screen. So do you see that same thing happening in that sentence?
oh, so
Is
that's
there a
where
thing that's
you,
extra?
okay. So you've got which question, Bobby? So use commas or dashes. Oh, where's the
Yeah.
question?
So here's the question. It's this
Okay. Thank
question.
you.
Yeah. So in this sentence, is there something that we could put parentheses around and like cut it out of the sentence because it's just right?
Recognizing notes without aid.
Yeah, that part is extra, right? We could
Yeah.
put parentheses around it. So what should the answer be then?
G.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And so like on each test, you would see probably 3 questions that do this exact thing, right? where it might have dashes or parentheses, and you just look and see if there's something extra around it.
Okay.
Right? Now, here's the really tricky one. Look at this one.
Oh boy.
So this sentence is going to give you the urge to put commas or parentheses around that name. Because a lot of times when we say a name, like, we would say, my friend, or, this famous Japanese immigrant, comma, Izuka Masahara, comma. But the answer to this question is we don't need any commas.
Which makes sense to me, but yeah, I got to tell you, if I would have seen this just on a test, I probably would have questioned it.
Because you're so used to putting parentheses around things. So look at this example here. So if I said, a famous soccer player won a medal, then her name, Megan Rapinoe, would be extra. And you would put parentheses.
Yeah, then her name needs
so
the
that
parentheses.
Would be, right. But if you don't say a famous soccer player, if you just say famous soccer player, then it's no commas. And every single ACT has this exact question 2 times, where it has a name that doesn't get commas around it because it doesn't say a famous soccer player. It just says famous soccer player Megan Rapinoe won a medal. Back here, immigrant Izuka Masahara adopted the name.
So go back, because to me then, the other, I'm sorry, down to the next question. So to me, what you do though is you take her name out, and famous soccer player won a medal isn't a complete sentence.
Exactly, right. Since that's not a complete sentence, we can't cross it out. Exactly. And so that's why the answer is always the one with no commas. Isn't that strange? But every test has it, right? Okay, so let's look at another example. So did you know that on the ACT, out of the 75 questions, on about 15% of the questions, all you do is choose the shortest answer. Or technically, you pick the shortest answer that isn't weird. Now, what kind of grammar rule is that? That's not a grammar rule. What they're testing is, don't be redundant. Don't repeat words that were already said. But if you didn't know that this is a rule, then you would just miss a lot of questions. So take a look at this question here.
Okay. Can you make that a little bit bigger, Bobby?
Yeah.
I can read it, but I got to lean in.
Yep. No. Is that a little easier to read?
That's easier to read, yeah.
Okay. So if you look at the answers, you see how one of the answers is a whole lot shorter than the others?
Yeah.
So that's the hint that this is probably a conciseness question where you just pick the shortest answer. But the way to notice it is there will be, a bunch of these questions on the test. It's when you see that each answer has the same words in it, or saying the same basic thing, but 3 of them are way longer. If you look above in the paragraph, you'll see that all these other things were already said earlier in the paragraph.
So what we're looking at is the next line, right? The over 80. Okay.
So we're looking at the very bottom where it says that the answer, the original, is the mine that is below the city of Bonne Terre. But they already said that it's beneath the city of Bonne Terre, and they already said that it's sprawling, and they already said it's shaped like a giant cone. And so the answer is simply just going to be the short one. Isn't that crazy?
Okay.
So why would they test this, right? And it's seeing if you notice that things have already been said, seeing if you're actually reading it.
Well, and I will tell you this, Bobby, I go back to, I do a lot of writing for my business. And I'll tell you, when I go back and really think about it, I can shorten sentences like crazy.
Absolutely. And that's what this is about. But they don't tell you anywhere on the test that they test this. So you just need to know these patterns.
Okay.
Okay, now look at this one. Let me make it bigger. Do you notice that the answers kind of look like the same thing here again? Like a couple of them are a lot longer than the others?
Yes.
But the problem here is it's not just the shortest answer, because it's the shortest answer that isn't weird. You see some weird short answers there?
Yeah.
Like nifty and wicked sweet.
Well, right. The wicked sweet, I raised my eyebrows anyway.
So those are too casual for the scientific nature of the passage. So the answer is going to be the short boring
All the
academic
more
sounding thing.
fascinating. Yeah,
Right. But not this thing with all those extra words about the captivating conundrum and all that.
right.
That's it. Okay, one last kind of question. Another thing they do on the test is they ask questions where they don't actually underline, like they here, instead of just underlining it and you pick the best answer, they will give you a question that tells you what to do. So, like, for instance, as an example, if the question said, which choice does the best job of emphasizing the pride felt by the actors in the theater company? The answer would just simply be the answer that it has words that mean you feel pride or something like that. Just a word that means pride. And like the actors in the theater company, that part doesn't really matter. And so look at this question. This question actually gives us 3 different things the answer needs to do. The first thing the answer needs to do is say that the rooms are large. But not all 4 of those answers actually mean large, right? Like
Right. Not unbelievable.
un
You can cross out.
unbelievable isn't large, right? But then there's another thing it has to do. It has to be clear.
So, well, I would say expansive rooms, but I'd say stadium size
Expansive
to
would
me
mean
means
large,
something.
right? So
So-
larger than life is not very clear, right?
Right. So I'd
But
say, yeah, no
then
on that.
the third thing, the answer has to give a specific reference that tells us the scale or size of the mind.
So B, stadium size.
So it's stadium sized. But everyone misses this question, right? Every student misses this question because they don't
Specific
get
references.
that
Yeah.
far and they just pick whichever sounds good. And notice that sounds good is nowhere in the list, right? And that's it. And so once you have a list of rules to follow and you see that this is just read and do what it says, right? And
And
once you get there, it's not that hard at all.
And Bobby, once again, in the last 2 programs that we talked about with these ACT tests, it's about reading the question
Absolutely.
I think what's really cool about what you do with the kids is you help them highlight certain things that it's like, ooh, this is specific. I need to highlight that.
Mm-hmm.
And showing them kind of these tricks on making sure they understand the question before they look for the answer.
And that's what really ties this all together, which is, yeah, these are tricks for doing well on the test, but the trick is read carefully and do what the question says, which is also just called critical thinking and like careful test taking, right? So it's not a trick, it's just read slowly and carefully and do what it says. And if you do that and calm down and don't let it intimidate you, you will absolutely do very well on the test. And that's it. And so, that this is all it is just these 13 rules. Every question follows one of these 13 rules and just follow those steps. And that's why I will see students straight up go from a 21, which is a median score. On the second test, they might score a 28 or a 32. Like you can go up that much on English once you realize it's just a list of rules.
You know
That's
what?
it.
I think this is the one that my son Chris was telling me about, this section.
Yep.
You helped him with a ton because he's like, Mom, there are just certain rules you have to know.
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference for him. He got those 2 points he needed to get his full academic scholarship. So
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. So let's go back to the key here is read the question carefully before you answer the test. And yeah, Bobby, so how many questions are there in the reading section?
So reading has 40 questions and English has 75 questions.
75 questions. And how much time do you have to do this?
Only 45 minutes.
Oh.
So that is only about 35 seconds per question. And that's why you have to know these 13 rules and immediately know what to do, because otherwise you're going to run out of time, right? But you can also see that each of these things we did not take much time at all to answer once you knew the rules.
Right.
But you can imagine what students do. They just sit there staring and reading and thinking about all the different grammar rules they might remember from elementary school, or just thinking about what sounds good, and that doesn't get you anywhere. And that's it.
Okay. All right, Bobby.
All right.
We're proving again that hard things are not that hard.
Excellent. And next week we will talk about reading to finish this all off. It'll be fun.
Okay. We'll see you then.
All righty. Bye bye.
Bye.